Good morning, beloved souls. This is Friday, March 6th, a new dawn wrapped in mercy, a fresh page written by grace. The sun has risen not only to light the sky, but to remind us that hope rises too. Today we gather our hearts in a sacred moment of morning prayer, where burdens can be laid down and weary spirits can breathe again. Life often hands us worries that sit heavy on the shoulders, questions about tomorrow, memories from yesterday, and fears that whisper in the quiet of the night. But this morning we are reminded of a gentle truth. We do not walk alone. There is a place where the heart can rest, where the soul can exhale, and where every worry can be released into hands far stronger than our own. So today, let us pause, let us open the door of prayer, and step inside that holy stillness. Because when we rest our hearts in God, worry loses its voice, fear loosens its grip, and peace, sweet quiet peace, begins to bloom within us. There is a quiet miracle hidden in the first moments of the morning. Before the noise of the world begins its clamor, before the hurried footsteps and ringing phones and anxious thoughts claim their place in the mind, there exists a sacred space where the soul can breathe. Morning arrives like a gentle invitation from heaven itself, whispering softly to every tired heart, "Come and rest a while. Come and begin again." Too often we wake up already carrying the weight of the day. We open our eyes and immediately remember the unfinished tasks, the unpaid bills, the uncertain future, the silent fears that crept into our minds during the night. Our thoughts begin to run ahead of us like restless horses, pulling our hearts toward worry before our feet have even touched the ground. But there is another way to greet the morning. There is a path that leads not to anxiety, but to peace, and that path begins with surrender. Surrender is a word that many people misunderstand. In the world's language, surrender sounds like defeat. It sounds like giving up, like losing a battle, like laying down your strength and admitting that you are powerless. But in the language of faith, surrender is not weakness at all. It is wisdom. It is the recognition that some burdens were never meant for human shoulders to carry alone. When we surrender our day to God in the quiet of the morning, we are not giving up our courage or our responsibility. Instead, we are placing our lives into the hands of the one who sees farther than we can see and loves deeper than we can understand. It is the simple yet powerful act of saying, "Lord, this day belongs to you. My worries belong to you. My plans belong to you. Guide my steps and steady my heart." And there is something beautiful that happens in that moment. The tightness in the chest begins to loosen. The storm in the mind begins to quiet. It is as though the soul, which has been standing all night under a heavy sky, finally feels the warmth of the sun. Morning prayer is not meant to be complicated or polished. It does not require perfect words or eloquent sentences. God does not wait for poetry before he listens. Sometimes the most powerful prayer is simply a whisper from a weary heart. Sometimes it is nothing more than a breath that says, "Help me, Lord." And sometimes it is a silent moment where the heart speaks what the lips cannot. The beauty of surrender is that it frees us from the illusion that we must control everything. Many of us spend our days trying to arrange every detail of life, trying to predict every possible outcome, trying to protect ourselves from every disappointment. We build walls of worry and towers of overthinking, believing that if we plan enough and think enough and struggle enough, we can somehow keep life from surprising us. But life as we know has never been so obedient to our plans. Storms arrive without permission. Challenges knock on doors we never expected to open. And sometimes the road ahead bends in ways we could never have imagined. That is why surrender is not only a spiritual practice, it is a profound relief. It reminds us that we are not the architects of the universe. We are travelers within it. When we start the day with surrender, we acknowledge that God walks beside us in every step we take. We understand that we are not wandering through life alone, trying to carry every responsibility on our own fragile shoulders. Instead, we are guided by a presence that is steady when we are uncertain and strong when we are weak. Imagine the difference it makes to begin the morning with that truth resting gently in your heart. Imagine waking up and instead of reaching immediately for your worries, you reach first for faith. Imagine allowing the first words of your day to be gratitude instead of anxiety. Imagine telling God, "Thank you for the breath in my lungs, for the light in the sky, for the chance to try again today." because every morning is in its own quiet way a second chance. The past may carry regrets. Yesterday may have left scars or disappointments. But the dawn does not ask for yesterday's mistakes before it rises. The sun does not refuse to shine because we stumbled the day before. Morning arrives faithfully, offering a clean page to every soul that is willing to receive it. Surrender allows us to accept that gift. Instead of dragging yesterday's worries into today, we place them gently into God's hands. We release the arguments we cannot undo, the failures we cannot erase, and the fears we cannot solve on our own. We trust that the same God who brought us through yesterday will guide us through today as well. And in that trust, something extraordinary happens. Courage begins to grow. Not the loud, boastful kind of courage that demands attention, but the quiet courage that stands calmly in the face of uncertainty. The courage that says, whatever this day holds, I will not face it alone. Morning surrender also changes the way we walk through the hours that follow. When we begin the day in prayer, our perspective shifts. Problems that once felt overwhelming begin to look smaller beneath the light of faith. Conversations become kinder. Decisions become clearer. Our steps become steadier because we know that our direction has been entrusted to a higher wisdom. Even when challenges appear, and they will, we meet them with a different spirit. Instead of panic, we carry patience. Instead of fear, we carry trust. And instead of feeling crushed by every difficulty, we remember the promise we made in the morning, that this day belongs to God. There is also a quiet strength that grows inside people who practice surrender. It is the strength of humility, the understanding that we do not need to prove ourselves to the world every moment of the day. We do not need to solve every problem instantly or carry every burden perfectly. We simply need to walk faithfully, step by step, trusting that God is guiding the path. And perhaps the most beautiful part of starting the day with surrender is the peace that settles into the heart. Peace is not the absence of problems. Life will always bring its share of storms, but peace is the calm assurance that even in the middle of those storms, there is a hand holding yours. It is the knowledge that your life is seen, your prayers are heard, and your journey is not without purpose. So when the morning comes, and it will come with quiet persistence, as it always does, pause for a moment before the world rushes in. Sit in that sacred silence where the air is still soft with possibility. Let your first thoughts rise upward instead of outward. Give your worries to God before they have the chance to grow heavy. Offer your plans before they become tangled with stress. Place your heart gently into His care. And then rise to meet the day not as someone burdened by fear, but as someone carried by faith. Because when a soul begins the morning with surrender, it does not walk into the day empty-handed. It walks forward holding peace. It walks forward holding hope. And that, dear heart, is more strength than worry could ever take away. There comes a moment in every human life when the heart grows tired. Not the kind of tiredness that sleep alone can mend, not the weariness that fades after a long night's rest, but a deeper fatigue that settles quietly inside the spirit. It is the tiredness that comes from carrying too many worries, from holding too many unanswered questions, from trying to be strong for far too long. Many people walk through their days with this invisible weight. They smile in conversations. They complete their responsibilities. They move through the ordinary routines of life. But beneath the surface, their hearts are restless. Thoughts circle like birds in a stormy sky. Doubts whisper in quiet moments. And somewhere within, the soul longs for a place where it can finally be still. Faith offers that place. To rest your heart in faith is to step into a sacred understanding that you are not alone in the unfolding story of your life. It is to trust that beyond the worries you can see, beyond the struggles you can name, there exists a divine presence that watches over every breath you take and every path you walk. Faith does not always shout its presence with loud declarations. Often it speaks in the softest voice. It appears in the gentle reassurance that rises within you when everything around you seems uncertain. It is the quiet courage that allows you to take another step forward, even when the road ahead is hidden by shadows. Resting your heart in faith means allowing that quiet voice to become louder than your fears. The world teaches us to rely on what we can measure, what we can predict, what we can control. We are told that security lies in careful planning and constant effort. Yet life, in its mysterious wisdom, often reminds us that control is an illusion. Circumstances shift, doors close unexpectedly, and storms sometimes arrive without warning. When those moments come, the heart begins to search for something stronger than logic and steadier than circumstance. It begins to search for faith. Faith is not the denial of difficulty. It does not pretend that pain does not exist or that struggles will never appear. Instead, faith acknowledges the reality of hardship while holding firmly to the truth that hardship does not have the final word. When you rest your heart in faith, you allow yourself to believe that even in the middle of uncertainty, God is working in ways you cannot yet see. Imagine the heart as a traveler who has been walking a long road beneath a heavy sun. The path has been difficult, the miles have been many, and the traveler has begun to wonder whether the journey will ever grow easier. Then suddenly the traveler finds a tree beside the road, a tall, generous tree with wide branches and cool shade. Faith is that tree. It does not erase the road you have walked, and it does not remove the miles that still lie ahead. But it offers a moment of rest, a place where the weary soul can sit down and remember that strength can be renewed. In that shade, the heart begins to breathe again. Resting your heart in faith also means releasing the constant pressure to understand everything immediately. Human beings often feel uncomfortable with mystery. We want answers to arrive quickly and solutions to appear without delay. Yet some of life's most important truths unfold slowly, like flowers opening in the early light of morning. Faith teaches patience in the presence of uncertainty. It reminds us that God's timing does not always follow the clocks we carry on our wrists. What feels like delay to us may be preparation in the hands of heaven. What feels like silence may be the quiet shaping of something greater than we can imagine. When the heart learns to rest in faith, it stops demanding immediate clarity and begins to trust the unfolding process of life. There is also a profound freedom that comes with resting your heart in faith. The human spirit was never designed to live in constant tension. Worry tightens the muscles of the soul. Anxiety fills the mind with endless questions that lead nowhere. Fear builds walls where hope once lived. But faith gently loosens those knots. It reminds us that we do not have to carry every answer within ourselves. We do not have to solve every problem before the sun sets. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is simply trust that God's wisdom reaches farther than their own understanding. This kind of trust does not weaken the spirit. It strengthens it. A heart resting in faith becomes steady in the face of change. It becomes patient in the middle of waiting. It becomes resilient when difficulties arise. Because faith plants a quiet assurance deep within the soul. The assurance that no matter how confusing the present moment may seem, the story of your life is still being guided by loving hands. Faith also changes the way we see ourselves. So many people carry hidden doubts about their worth. They question whether they are strong enough, wise enough, capable enough to meet the challenges of life. They compare themselves to others and feel that they somehow fall short. But faith whispers a different truth. Faith reminds us that we are not defined by our failures or limited by our fears. It tells us that we are created with purpose, that every life holds meaning beyond what the eyes can see. When we rest our hearts in faith, we begin to believe that our existence is not an accident, but a carefully written verse in the poetry of creation. And when a person begins to believe that truth, their heart finds a new kind of peace. This peace is not fragile. It does not disappear the moment circumstances become difficult. Instead, it grows quietly stronger with each passing day. It becomes the steady rhythm beneath the surface of life, reminding us that even when the winds of trouble blow fiercely, the roots of faith run deep. Resting your heart in faith also invites gratitude into your life. When you trust that God is guiding your steps, you begin to notice the small blessings that once went unseen. The warmth of the morning sun feels like a gift. The laughter of a loved one becomes a reminder of grace. Even the ordinary moments of the day begin to shimmer with quiet beauty. Faith opens the eyes of the heart. It teaches us to recognize that God's presence is not limited to extraordinary miracles. Sometimes it appears in the simple rhythm of breathing, in the kindness of a stranger, in the quiet strength that carries us through one more day. And slowly, gently, the heart that once felt overwhelmed begins to feel grateful instead. Perhaps the greatest gift of resting your heart in faith is the realization that peace is not something you must chase. It is something you can receive. You receive it when you release the grip of worry. You receive it when you trust that God's love surrounds your life, even when circumstances feel uncertain. You receive it when you stop trying to hold the entire future in your own hands, and instead place it into the care of the one who sees beyond time itself. Faith does not promise that every day will be easy, but it promises that every day can be meaningful. It promises that even the hardest seasons of life can lead to deeper wisdom and stronger character. So when the worries of life begin to press heavily upon your heart, remember this gentle truth: you were never meant to carry them alone. There is a place where your spirit can rest, a place where your fears can be quieted and your strength can be renewed. That place is found not in perfect circumstances, not in complete understanding, but in faith. Let your heart lean into that faith. Let it breathe in the assurance that God is near, that your life is held within a greater story, and that every step you take is guided by love, deeper than the ocean and stronger than the storm. And in that sacred resting place, the weary heart will discover something beautiful, peace that does not depend on the world's approval, courage that rises quietly from within, and hope that shines gently even in the darkest hour. For a heart resting in faith is never truly alone, and a soul that trusts in God will always find its way back to peace. Every morning arrives carrying a quiet promise. It does not shout its message from the rooftops, nor does it demand attention with great ceremony. Instead, it comes softly, with the pale light of dawn stretching across the sky, as if heaven itself is opening a gentle window for the world to breathe again. In that sacred moment before the noise of the day begins, the soul is offered a gift, an invitation to begin anew. Yet many of us greet the morning with hands already full. We carry yesterday with us like a heavy suitcase packed with regrets, disappointments, unanswered questions, and memories that refuse to sit quietly in the past. We replay conversations that should have ended hours ago. We relive mistakes that cannot be undone. We revisit worries that exhausted us the night before, as though turning them over again might somehow produce a different ending. But yesterday, for all its lessons and memories, has already finished speaking. The sun that rises today does not belong to yesterday. The breath filling your lungs this morning was not borrowed from the past. Each new day arrives untouched by the mistakes and sorrows that once weighed upon your heart. And yet so often we insist on dragging those burdens forward, placing them squarely upon our shoulders before the day has even begun. Letting go of yesterday's burdens is not always easy. The human heart has a curious way of holding on to pain. Sometimes we cling to regret because we believe that if we remember our mistakes long enough, we might somehow make them right. Sometimes we hold on to hurt because we feel that releasing it would mean that the wound did not matter. But the truth is gentler than that. Letting go does not erase the past, nor does it pretend that pain never existed. It simply means choosing not to allow yesterday's shadows to darken today's light. There is a quiet wisdom in understanding that every human being carries moments they wish had unfolded differently. No life is free from missteps. No heart has walked through the world without encountering disappointment. But the beauty of life lies not in flawless living. It lies in the courage to continue growing. Yesterday may have held mistakes, but today holds possibility. Imagine the heart as a garden. Over time, storms pass through that garden. Some flowers are bent by the wind, some leaves fall to the ground, and sometimes the soil itself grows heavy with rain. But the gardener does not abandon the garden simply because a storm has come and gone. Instead, the gardener clears away what has fallen, tends the soil with patience, and trusts that new life will grow again. Your heart deserves that same care. If you continue to hold on to every fallen leaf, every broken branch from yesterday's storm, there will be no room for the new blossoms waiting to appear. Letting go is not an act of forgetfulness. It is an act of faith in the future. Faith reminds us that our lives are not defined by a single moment, a single failure, or even a difficult season. Life is a long and unfolding story, and yesterday was only one page within a much larger book. Sometimes we must remind ourselves that the past has already played its part. The conversations have been spoken, the choices have been made, the hours have slipped into memory. Holding on to them will not rewrite the script, but releasing them can change the way the next chapter begins. Morning prayer offers a sacred opportunity to release those burdens. When we bow our heads and lift our hearts toward God, we are invited to place our regrets, our worries, and our disappointments into hands far stronger than our own. We acknowledge that while we cannot return to yesterday to change its outcome, we can trust God to redeem its lessons. And there is something profoundly freeing in that trust. When the heart stops wrestling with the past, it begins to breathe again. The mind grows quieter. The spirit feels lighter. Suddenly, the future does not appear as a continuation of yesterday's problems, but as a field filled with possibilities yet unseen. Letting go also requires compassion for ourselves. Human beings are often quick to forgive others, yet painfully slow to forgive their own hearts. We replay our mistakes as though punishment might somehow produce wisdom. We carry guilt like a badge of responsibility, believing that releasing it would mean we have escaped accountability. But true growth does not grow from endless self-condemnation. It grows from understanding. When you acknowledge your mistakes with honesty and humility, you create space for transformation. When you forgive yourself with sincerity, you allow healing to begin. And when you trust that God's grace is greater than your failures, you discover that yesterday's burdens no longer hold the same power over your life. Grace has a remarkable way of loosening the chains of the past. It reminds us that every person is a work in progress, shaped not only by successes, but also by the lessons learned through difficulty. The very experiences that once filled us with regret can become the wisdom that guides us forward. So the question is not whether yesterday contained mistakes or pain. The question is whether you will allow those moments to imprison your spirit or instruct your growth. Life moves forward whether we release the past or cling to it. The sun continues to rise, time continues its steady rhythm. Opportunities appear quietly along the path ahead. But a heart weighed down by yesterday's burdens may struggle to recognize them. When you release the past, your vision clears. The possibilities of today become visible again. You begin to notice the kindness of small moments, the warmth of sunlight on your face, the sound of laughter in the distance, the comfort of knowing that another chance has arrived. And perhaps that is the most beautiful truth of all. Every morning carries a second chance. Not because we deserve perfection, but because life itself is generous. Because God's mercy is patient. Because the human spirit was created with the remarkable ability to begin again. Beginning again does not require a perfect past. It simply requires a willing heart. So when the morning light filters through your window and the world begins to stir, pause for a moment. Remember that yesterday has already fulfilled its purpose. Its lessons are yours to keep, but its burdens are not yours to carry forever. Place those burdens gently into God's care. Release the regrets that whisper too loudly. Let go of the disappointments that have lingered longer than they should. Set down the worries that have stolen too much of your peace. And then step into the day with open hands. For the future does not belong to the mistakes of yesterday. It belongs to the courage of today. It belongs to the quiet faith that believes healing is possible and growth is certain. When you let go of yesterday's burdens, your heart becomes lighter, your spirit becomes freer, your steps become steadier. And as you walk forward into the unfolding hours of a new day, you may discover something extraordinary, that what once felt like the end of hope was only the beginning of grace. There is a quiet transformation that begins in the human heart, the moment gratitude takes its seat. It does not arrive with thunder or bright flashes of light. It comes softly, like the first rays of morning stretching across a quiet field, touching everything with a gentle warmth that whispers, "Look again. There is more beauty here than you first believed." Worry, on the other hand, is loud. It arrives with hurried footsteps and restless thoughts. It fills the mind with questions that circle endlessly without offering peace. Worry tells us that tomorrow is uncertain, that our strength may not be enough, that the world is heavier than our hope. It speaks quickly and often, convincing us that we must carry every problem in our hands before the day has even begun. But gratitude speaks differently. Gratitude slows the heart. It quiets the mind. It reminds us that even in the presence of challenges, there are still blessings standing quietly beside us, waiting to be noticed. To replace worry with gratitude is not to deny that life contains difficulty. No honest heart could claim that life is free of storms. People experience loss, disappointment, unanswered prayers, and seasons of waiting that feel longer than expected. Gratitude does not pretend these struggles do not exist. Instead, it changes the way we see them. Gratitude teaches us that even in a difficult chapter, the story of life still contains moments of grace. Consider how easily the human mind drifts toward worry. The moment we wake in the morning, thoughts begin to gather like clouds. There are responsibilities to meet, problems to solve, expectations to fulfill. The mind begins counting the possibilities of what might go wrong before it has even paused to notice what is already right. But gratitude invites us to begin somewhere else. Imagine waking in the quiet of the morning and choosing to notice the simple miracle of breath moving in and out of your body. That breath, steady and faithful, is a gift that many people around the world prayed for but did not receive today. Imagine opening your eyes and recognizing that the light filtering through your window is not merely sunlight. It is another chance to live, to grow, to love, to try again. Gratitude begins with awareness. It begins when we pause long enough to see what has always been present but rarely acknowledged. The beating of the heart, the warmth of a cup of tea, the voice of a loved one greeting us across the room. These moments are small in the eyes of the world, yet they hold a quiet power to transform our perspective. When gratitude enters the heart, worry begins to loosen its grip. Worry thrives in the darkness of assumption. It grows stronger when the mind focuses only on what might go wrong. But gratitude brings light into those shadows. It reminds us that the story of our lives is not written solely in struggles, but also in blessings. The human spirit has a remarkable ability to adapt its focus. What we choose to notice becomes the lens through which we experience the world. If we focus constantly on fear and uncertainty, the world begins to appear frightening and unstable. But when we train our hearts to recognize blessings, the world begins to reveal its hidden kindness. Gratitude does not eliminate problems, but it changes the atmosphere in which we face them. A grateful heart approaches challenges with a different kind of strength. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by every difficulty, it remembers the many times help arrived unexpectedly. It remembers the moments when strength appeared just when it was needed most. It remembers that life has carried us through storms before, and therefore we can trust that we will find our way again. In this way, gratitude becomes a form of faith. It is the quiet confidence that even when circumstances are uncertain, goodness still exists. It is the belief that God's presence can be found not only in extraordinary miracles, but also in the ordinary details of everyday life. Many people wait for dramatic blessings before they allow gratitude to enter their hearts. They believe they will give thanks when the perfect opportunity arrives, when the promotion is secured, when the problem disappears, when life becomes easier. But gratitude does not require perfect conditions. It grows best in humble soil. It thrives in the simple recognition that life itself is a gift worthy of appreciation. When we thank God for the small things, the food on our table, the shelter above our heads, the people who stand beside us, we begin to realize that our lives are already filled with quiet miracles. And slowly, worry begins to fade, not because every problem has vanished, but because gratitude has changed the way we see our circumstances. It has reminded us that even in the presence of challenges, there are still reasons to hope. There is also a remarkable peace that grows in a grateful heart. Gratitude softens the tension that worry creates. It reminds us that we do not need to control every outcome in order to experience joy. Sometimes joy arrives in the simple act of appreciating what we already have. When a person practices gratitude regularly, their spirit begins to shift. The mind becomes less crowded with anxious thoughts. The heart becomes more open to kindness and compassion. The soul becomes more attentive to the quiet gifts that appear throughout the day. Gratitude also has a beautiful way of spreading outward. When you live with a grateful heart, your words become gentler, your patience grows deeper, your presence becomes a source of encouragement for those around you. People feel the warmth of gratitude the same way they feel the warmth of sunlight. It reaches them without effort. A grateful spirit reminds others that hope is still possible. And perhaps that is one of the greatest gifts gratitude offers the world. In a time when many hearts feel burdened by worry and uncertainty, a single grateful voice can become a beacon of peace. Gratitude says, yes, life has its difficulties, but it also has its blessings. Gratitude says, yes, the road may be long, but there is still beauty along the way. Gratitude says, yes, the future is unknown, but today is still a gift. Morning prayer is a powerful moment to cultivate this spirit of gratitude. Before the noise of the day begins, before responsibilities crowd our thoughts, we can pause and thank God for the simple privilege of waking up to another sunrise. We can thank Him for strength that carried us through yesterday. We can thank Him for the unseen protection that guarded our steps through the night. We can thank Him for the promise that His presence will walk beside us today. When gratitude becomes the first language of the morning, worry loses its authority. The mind may still attempt to wander toward anxious thoughts, but gratitude gently guides it back to what is true. It reminds us that life is not defined only by what is missing, but also by what is present. And the truth is that many blessings are already present. The opportunity to love, the chance to grow, the ability to forgive, the strength to begin again. These are gifts that worry cannot take away. So as the day unfolds and the world begins to speak its many demands, carry gratitude with you like a quiet companion. Let it guide your thoughts when fear begins to whisper. Let it steady your heart when uncertainty appears. Look for the small blessings hidden within ordinary moments. Notice the kindness of strangers, the laughter of children, the quiet beauty of the sky at dusk. Because gratitude is not simply an emotion, it is a way of seeing. It is the gentle practice of recognizing that even in an imperfect world, goodness still shines. It is the courage to thank God not only for what we understand, but also for what we trust. He is still preparing. And when gratitude fills the heart, worry no longer has the final word. For a grateful soul walks through life with lighter steps, brighter vision, and a quiet confidence that no matter what tomorrow holds, there will always be something worth giving thanks for. There is a quiet strength that lives within a peaceful heart. It is not the kind of strength that raises its voice or demands to be noticed. It does not rush through the day trying to prove its worth. Instead, it moves gently like a calm river flowing steadily through the land, certain of its direction and patient with every turn along the way. To walk into the day with peace is one of the greatest gifts a human soul can carry. It is a gift that does not come from perfect circumstances or a life free of problems. Peace is born from something deeper. It rises from the understanding that no matter what the day brings, the heart is anchored in something greater than fear. Many people wake each morning already bracing themselves for the struggles they expect to face. The mind begins rehearsing worries before the day has even begun. Questions gather quickly. Will everything go as planned? Will the problems grow heavier? Will the strength inside be enough to meet the demands ahead? These thoughts arrive like restless winds, stirring the waters of the heart until calmness feels far away. But peace speaks in another language. Peace does not ask us to predict every challenge or solve every problem before the sun rises. Instead, it invites us to trust the quiet assurance that we are guided, supported, and never truly alone on the road we walk. When a person begins the day with prayer, something sacred happens within the soul. The heart opens itself to the presence of God. And in that sacred conversation, burdens begin to loosen their hold. Worries that once seemed overwhelming grow smaller in the light of faith. The spirit remembers that it was never meant to carry the world on its shoulders. This remembrance creates space for peace. Peace does not rush into the heart like a sudden storm. It settles gently, like soft rain falling upon thirsty ground. It fills the empty places where worry once lived. It quiets the restless thoughts that once circled endlessly in the mind. And slowly, almost without noticing, the person who once felt anxious begins to feel steady again. Walking into the day with peace means carrying that steady spirit into every moment that follows. It means greeting the world not with tension but with trust. It means believing that whatever comes, you will have the strength to face it because you do not face it alone. Life will always present unexpected turns. There will be days when plans fall apart and moments when challenges appear suddenly, without warning. But a peaceful heart approaches those moments differently. Instead of panic, it chooses patience. Instead of fear, It chooses faith. Instead of believing that every difficulty signals defeat, it believes that each challenge carries the possibility of growth. Peace allows the heart to breathe even in uncertain moments. It reminds us that the future is not a dark mystery meant to frighten us, but a journey unfolding step by step under the watchful care of God. When you walk into the day with peace, your spirit begins to notice things that anxiety once hid from view. The beauty of the morning sky becomes more vivid. The laughter of another person feels warmer. The simple rhythm of life begins to reveal its quiet blessings. Peace sharpens the eyes of gratitude. It helps us understand that life is not only a collection of responsibilities and obligations. It is also a series of moments meant to be lived, experienced, and appreciated. Many people hurry through their days so quickly that they forget to experience them. They move from one task to another with restless urgency, always thinking about the next problem waiting ahead. But peace invites us to slow down enough to recognize the present moment as something valuable. This moment, right now, is part of your life. It is not merely a bridge to the future. It is a living piece of your story, worthy of attention and care. When peace fills the heart, each moment becomes meaningful because it is experienced fully instead of being rushed past in worry. Peace also changes the way we interact with the people around us. A peaceful spirit carries kindness in its voice and patience in its actions. It does not rush to anger or leap quickly to judgment. Instead, it listens carefully and responds with understanding. When others are troubled, a peaceful heart becomes a quiet refuge for them. There is something deeply comforting about being near someone who walks through life with calmness in their soul. Their presence reminds others that peace is possible even in a restless world. In this way, peace becomes a gift not only for the person who carries it, but also for everyone they encounter. Walking into the day with peace also requires courage. It takes courage to trust when uncertainty appears. It takes courage to remain calm when circumstances try to stir fear. But this courage grows naturally when faith becomes the foundation of the heart. Faith whispers a powerful truth. God is already present in the hours ahead. He walks before you into conversations you have not yet had. He stands beside you in challenges you have not yet faced. He prepares paths through difficulties you cannot yet see. When the heart believes this truth, peace begins to flourish. Peace does not mean that the day will unfold exactly as you wish. It does not guarantee that every plan will succeed or that every challenge will vanish. But it does promise something far more valuable, the assurance that you will not face the day without guidance. This assurance becomes a steady light within the spirit. Imagine walking through a dark forest with a lantern in your hand. The lantern does not illuminate the entire path at once, but it provides enough light to take the next step safely. As you continue walking, the light moves forward with you, revealing more of the path with each step. Peace works in much the same way. It does not reveal every detail of the future, but it provides the calm confidence needed to move forward. Each step becomes possible because the heart trusts that the light will continue to guide the way. Morning prayer is often the moment when that lantern is first lit. In the stillness of prayer, we place our concerns into God's care. We acknowledge our hopes, our fears, and our uncertainties. And in return, we receive a quiet reassurance that the journey ahead will not be walked alone. This reassurance becomes the foundation of peace. So when the day begins and the world begins to move quickly around you, carry that peace with intention. Let it guide your thoughts when worry tries to take control. Let it shape your words when frustration appears. Let it steady your heart when circumstances become challenging. Peace is not fragile. It is stronger than many people realize. It is the quiet strength that allows a person to remain calm in the middle of chaos. It is the steady voice that says, "This moment will pass and I will endure." It is the deep-rooted confidence that even in uncertain seasons, life is still unfolding with purpose. Walking into the day with peace is not about escaping the realities of life. It is about meeting those realities with a spirit that refuses to be overwhelmed by fear. It is about choosing faith over panic, trust over doubt, hope over despair. And when a person walks through the world carrying that kind of peace, something remarkable happens. The burdens that once felt unbearable grow lighter. The obstacles that once seemed impossible become manageable. The journey of life begins to feel less like a battle and more like a meaningful path guided by divine care. So as the morning unfolds and the hours stretch before you, step into them with confidence. Let your heart remain steady. Let your spirit remain open to the quiet guidance of God. Walk forward knowing that peace is not something you must chase. It is something you can carry. And when you carry peace into the day, you bring with you a light that no storm can fully extinguish, a calm that no trouble can completely disturb, and a hope that will continue to guide your steps long after the sun has set.